So first thing in the morning, when you wake up, do you immediately think about your mile-long to-do list and start getting really overwhelmed? You may feel dread and like you just have a pit in your stomach and feel like you just need some space to breathe and not feel like you have to plan and schedule and account for every single second of your day. If you can relate to this, stick around, because I am going to tell you my 3-step system to help you manage your time and schedule as a working mom so you can feel grounded, intentional, and maybe even a little energized when you wake up in the morning and less overwhelmed. Okay. So if you are new here, before we get into the video, please be sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell to be notified when I post a new video. So I'm Dr. Shanice Jones-Cameron. I am a communication professor, time management coach, married mom of 3, who helps Black moms create realistic and personalized schedules and stick to systems that allow them to manage each aspect of their lives, be it career, family, personal goals, with more ease and intention and less overwhelm. Okay, so let's get into my simple 3-step process for managing your time with less overwhelm. So one of the first things that I recommend that you do if you're struggling to manage your time is to get clarity on how you are currently spending your time and why, okay? So a lot of times when we feel this tremendous overwhelm, I think it's because we aren't clear on how we are spending our time currently. And one of the ways that you can figure out how you're spending your time is to track your time and really ask yourself, is this where I want to be dedicating time and energy? So I always recommend that my clients start with a time audit to see how they're spending their time for about a week. So there are 168 hours in a week, and figuring out how you spend those 168 hours is going to give you a gold mine of information and insight into how you approach your life, specifically your time management. Then at the end of that week, you can look at the data you collected and look at how you're spending your time. And at that point, you can make an informed decision based on data, how you would like to move forward. So I recommend that you ask yourself these questions after you've done your time audit, which I like to call an introspective time audit. I recommend you ask yourself, are you happy with how you spent your time? What didn't you do that you want to actually create space for in your life? And if you are procrastinating, what are you thinking and what are you feeling while you are avoiding the task? Okay, so doing a time audit and asking yourself these questions allows you to be more intentional about where you are spending those 168 hours. So let's say, for example, you do a time audit, and at the end of the week, you realize that you spent 7 hours on social media, mostly scrolling through Facebook and Instagram. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you are someone who has other goals and aspirations like starting a business, or you want to spend more time with your kids or your husband or partner, that's time that you may consider redirecting, reallocating. Or you may look at your schedule and realize that hour that I usually spend from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. that I usually just spend watching TV on my phone or scrolling through Instagram when I could be when I'm working from home on Wednesdays, I could use that time to fold my laundry in front of the TV so I can have the satisfaction of marking that off of my to-do list and have more free time to spend with the kids when they get home from school. So when you get clarity and do an introspective time audit to see how you are spending your time, this can be the first step to reducing how overwhelmed you feel as you're navigating your day and your week. So the next thing that I recommend in my simple 3-step process for getting a handle on managing your time is creating a personalized and realistic, breathable schedule. Okay, so after you complete a time audit, you now have the data to see how you are spending your time, and you now have the information you need to change it moving forward. So the time audit allows you to see exactly when you're working, when you have personal time, when you are spending time with your family. So at this point, as I mentioned, what I do and what I have my clients do is use this information to create their own personalized, realistic, and breathable schedule. Okay, so when you have clarity on the things that you have to do and clarity on the approximate amount of time it takes you to do those things, it allows you to structure your day in a way that you have a clear roadmap to follow. So having that clear roadmap gives you the clarity and confidence you need to feel less overwhelmed. Now, let me just go ahead and keep it real. I am someone who resists sticking to a definitive schedule, okay? Like, I like my freedom and I like my flexibility to just kind of do what I want during the day, okay? So if you're someone who's like that as well, totally get it. Because, sometimes I may start working at 5:30 a.m. if I have a writing deadline or if I need to prep for class. And sometimes I may begin working at noon because I have to get up with the kids and do stuff around the house. And so I get it. If you are resistant to setting a schedule, I get it, because I personally really like my freedom and flexibility on my schedule. So I am often really resistant to blocking out my time and creating a schedule. But one of the things that I started to notice was whenever I did not make a schedule for myself, be that on a daily or a weekly basis, I would end up really overwhelmed because it just felt like there was this huge weight of responsibilities clouding my entire day with no real plan or roadmap for actually completing everything. Versus when I would block out my time, I knew I had specific pockets of time where I could see like, okay, I have all of this to do for work and I have to care for the kids within these blocks of time, but these other blocks of time can be used for things that make me feel expansive and things that I enjoy. So I also have found that creating this personalized schedule is really helpful because it allows me to see when I'm overworking and not giving myself space to rest and space to be creative. So as Black women, I think we constantly hear these messages, come in contact with people who promote this idea of the strong Black woman and the stereotype that we're supposed to be able to do it all, or that we should do it all and we're stronger than other women, which is just very problematic. And I think a lot of us may unintentionally be trying to live up to these standards, even when we know it's harmful and even when we are not trying to, reproduce those stereotypes in our life. So for me, having in the back of my mind that I don't want to reproduce these stereotypes, I remind myself that making a schedule for myself and being intentional about my time is one of the ways that I resist these strong Black woman and superwoman stereotypes. And I told myself, like, this is my life and I deserve more than just working all the time. And I want that for you too, sis. Like, you deserve more than just working all the time. So when you don't have a clear roadmap for how you're going to tackle each area of your life, and in my experience, that is a breeding ground for being overwhelmed, burnout, feeling trapped, and just powerless with all you have to do. Hey, before we get into the last step of my 3-part time management framework, I want to tell you about the daily self-care plan that I created. If you are someone who struggles with feeling overwhelmed on a day-to-day basis, one of the ways that you can support yourself is by sticking to daily self-care rituals. So I created this free guide, a practical daily self-care plan that can serve as a template and help you come up with your ideal daily self-care routine and rituals. This guide lays out what I recommend doing in the morning, afternoon, and evening to stay consistent with your self-care. You can use this free guide to develop your own self-care rituals or as inspiration to tweak or add on to what you already do. The link is in the description box. Let's get back into the video. So the last thing I recommend after you have gotten clarity on how you spend your time and done your introspective time audit, and 2, created a realistic, breathable, and personalized schedule to follow, the next thing I recommend is that you follow that realistic, breathable, personalized schedule as a guide and not a condemnation. So this realistic and personalized schedule should include everything that you need to do. But it should also include things that you want to do. Your breathable, personalized, realistic schedule would include tasks for work, your career, your family life, and activities that are going to enrich key relationships like your marriage, as well as actionable tasks that move you towards your self-care and personal development goals. But it's important that when you make the schedule, that you make it realistic. And let me tell you what I mean by realistic. So, as a recovering perfectionist, one of the things that used to hold me back with my scheduling and my time management was setting all of these like lofty and unrealistic goals, given the amount of time that I had and the other pressures that I had going on in my life. So, as I mentioned, I've mentioned this several times on my channel and on my podcast, I was married and had small children while I was in grad school. So I would create weekly schedules, and one of the things that I do is I would make a long to-do list given everything else that I had going on that just was not super realistic. So let me give you an example. What this would look like is when I'd be writing my schedule as a grad student, married mom, I may put down that I'll read 5 articles the evening after I've already woken up with the kids, taught my own class, and went to my grad classes. So this was unrealistic because I would be tired and already drained from everything else that I've already done that day. So it doesn't make sense to say, okay, I'm going to read 5 academic articles. So instead of saying that I'll read 5 academic articles after I've taught my own class, went to class, taken care of my kids early in the day, I may set a goal to read 1 article. And that small, tiny goal to read 1 article is a lot more realistic, and it gives me a little confidence boost to know that I'm already 20% through the articles that I have to read for class this week. And that, in turn, helps me build momentum. So that's part of what I mean about being realistic. You want your schedule to be attainable and created from a place of care, not just chasing productivity. And when you're making a realistic schedule, be mindful about your capacity at different points during the day. And you want to keep those day-to-day tasks reasonable. So other tips for creating a realistic schedule, focus on 1 to 2 tasks each day. Some planning systems call this a top 3 that can be helpful. When you create your schedule as well, take into account how long each task is going to take and give yourself extra time to complete it. I know other time management coaches will probably disagree with this because a lot of time management seems to focus on just being as efficient and productive as possible. However, I don't want to promote that. I think it's important that whatever schedule you create for yourself, it is, once again, created from a place of self-compassion, care, and love. So if you think something will take you an hour and a half to complete, give yourself 2 hours. Because in my experience, it is a lot more compassionate to give myself that extra 30 minutes so that I have the space to inevitably get distracted, for my kids to come in and knock on the door, or just come into my office, or to fight with my brain because I don't actually feel like completing the task. Rather than beating myself up because I don't finish within that ungenerous time frame, usually it's a lot more compassionate and realistic to go ahead and give myself extra time to complete those tasks. Okay, so just to quickly recap my simple 3-step process to help you feel less overwhelmed when you wake up in the morning and manage your time more effectively. 1, do an introspective time audit. 2, create a realistic, breathable, personalized schedule. And 3, follow that schedule as a guide and not a condemnation. So if you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed on a day-to-day basis, one of the fastest ways to help you feel more grounded is by focusing on your self-care. So check out this next video where I lay out a daily self-care plan that can help you take control over your brain and your time management so you can feel less overwhelmed. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch up with you in the next video.